So today we are doing slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. So the objectives are you guys are going to be able to determine if lines are perpendicular, parallel, or neither given the slopes of the lines, and then write the equation of a line given the slope of a parallel line and a point, the slope of a perpendicular line and a point, the equation of a parallel line and a point, and then the equation of a perpendicular line and a point. So slopes of parallel lines, just some info and vocab here. If two non-vertical lines are parallel, then their slopes are equal. If the slopes of two distinct non-vertical lines are equal, then the lines are parallel. Any two vertical lines or horizontal lines are parallel. So basically, they have to have the same slope in order for two lines to be parallel. Now, this should be a review for you, especially if you were in Algebra 2 last year. I definitely taught this last year. And if you were in Algebra 1, I'm pretty sure we go over it in that class as well. So the slopes need to be the same in order for lines to be parallel. So looking at our 4 examples below, you need to ask yourself when they ask you these types of questions, are the slopes the same? So -8 is the slope for the first one, and 1/4 is the slope for the second one. Those two do not have the same slope, so the lines are not parallel. -8 is not equal to 1/4. Okay, so now we have 3 and 3. That made a weird sound. Sorry, guys. 3 and 3. 3 is equal to 3, so the lines are parallel. The equations of two parallel lines have the same slope, but two different y-intercepts. So it is okay as long as they have the same slope. Their y-intercepts can both be positive. One can be positive, one can be negative. Both can be negative. One could be a fraction, one could be a whole number. The slopes just have to be the same in order for the two lines to be parallel. So then you guys go ahead and try 3 and 4. For number 3, the slopes are not the same. We have +7 and -7. Yeah, they're both 7, but one is positive, one is negative. That does not mean that they are the same slope. For the next one, some of you guys have a hard time seeing what the slope is when there's no number in front of the x, but remember, if there is no number, we assume that it is 1 or -1 depending on the sign. So both of these slopes have a -1 in front of the x. So -1 does equal -1, so these would be parallel lines. So then moving on to perpendicular lines. Now perpendicular lines, obviously they can't have the same slope because they intersect. So if two non-vertical lines are perpendicular, then the product of their slopes is -1. Non-vertical lines. If the slopes of two lines have a product of -1, then the lines are perpendicular. Remember look how it says product. Product means multiply. So if we took, well, let's do this. Any horizontal and vertical line are perpendicular. So if we have a slope of -2 and +1/2, if we multiply those two together, our answer is going to be -1. And that is how we can prove that they are perpendicular. If we notice the slopes of both of these lines here, obviously this isn't on your notes, but I'm just going to do it for you guys here. So the slope of the purple line here is up 1, 2, to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope of that purple line is 1/2. The other one is a negative slope, and I'm going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Over 1, 2, 3, 4. So 8 over 4 would be a -2. So the slopes are -2 and 1/2. If we were to multiply those two together, we would get -1, which means that those two lines are perpendicular. Looking at the next one, we have a slope that is, the blue line is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the blue line slope is -1. That's not right. did I count that right? No. Sorry, it's 1, 2. It would be negative 2 over 3. And then the purple line is up 1, 2, 3 to the right 2. So we have negative 2 over 3 as the blue line slope and positive 3 over 2 for the purple line slope. If we were to multiply those two together, negative 2 times 3 is a negative 6, and then 3 times 2 is positive 6. So again, it's negative 1. So that shows that both of these lines are perpendicular. But what can we say about their slopes? If we are looking at the slopes of the lines that are perpendicular are opposite reciprocal. So one's negative, one's positive, and then the slope, like the fraction, flips. You have the reciprocal. This is one of the most important things that the majority of kids forget. So perpendicular slopes have to be the opposite reciprocal. So the sign changes and the fraction flips, if that's how you would like to describe it. So then find the opposite reciprocal of each slope. So for number 1, we have 2 and negative 1 over 2. So we're switching the sign. We're going from a positive to a negative, and then we're flipping the fraction. So 2 is basically 2 over 1. We just flip the numerator and the denominator. So then go ahead and do the opposite reciprocals of all of those. So number 2 would be negative 3 over 2. Number 3, we are going to change it to a positive, and then because it's 7 over 1, we're going to make it 1 over 7. Number 4 is a positive 6. 5, now 0, we know 0 is a horizontal line. So a vertical line that doesn't have a slope of 0 but intersects our horizontal line would have to be undefined. We did that on Friday or Thursday, depending on what class you're in. And then for number 6, a slope of 1, the perpendicular line would be a negative 1. So now testing if some lines are perpendicular. So we want to look at our slopes. So we have 2 and negative 2. 2 and negative 2 are only opposites. They're not reciprocal, so these cannot be perpendicular. For number 2, we have negative 1/2 and negative 2. Yeah, they are reciprocals, but both of them are negative. One has to be positive, one has to be negative in order for these two to be perpendicular. The next one, so negative 1/2 and positive 2. We have a positive and a negative, and we have reciprocals. So yes, those two would be perpendicular. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to write an equation of the line depending on the information here. So we have negative 2x plus 1 and passing through the line negative 2, 3. So the important thing here is that we are trying to find a line that's parallel. So what I usually do is I would write parallel slope, and then I'd write my answer. So if parallel slope is, so if the original line is negative 2, parallel means they have to have the same slope. So the slope of this line is negative 2. Okay. Now you can do it the one way that we did on Thursday or Friday, and then you can also do my way. So here is the one way. We can plug m, x, and y in using my point that they give us. Here's x, here's y, and plug it in. So I would get negative 1 equals b. And then I would just plug it back into my y equals mx plus b and get y equals 2x minus 1. You can also use point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals, whoops, I screwed that up. Try this again. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and then solve for y. So I'm going to plug that in here. I'm going to have y minus 3, because this would be my y1, equals my slope times x minus x1, which is a negative 2. So this changes to plus a positive because it's a double negative. And then I'm going to distribute the negative 2, so y minus 3 equals negative 2x minus 4. And then we would add 3 to both sides, and we would get y equals negative 2x minus 1. So same answer. Personally, the point slope form in my mind is easier, but that is up to you. Okay? So then let's try this one together. So again, I'm going to write, step 1 is to find the slope of the equation. So if we're doing a parallel lines need to have the same slope. So the slope for this line is negative 1/2. Then I'm going to plug it in to my y equals mxb or point slope form, doesn't matter. So I'm going to plug in my negative 1/2, I'm going to plug in my negative 2, I'm going to plug in my 4. And I end up getting 3 for my y-intercept. Once I get that, then I can plug it back in and get y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. So we have our slope and we have our y-intercept. So now, okay, we have perpendicular lines. Okay, so perpendicular means it has to be the opposite reciprocal. So if I have a positive 1 as my slope, I'm going to say the perpendicular slope is negative because I have a positive, and then for a opposite reciprocal, it's just for 1, it's just 1. So we found the slope of the equation, which is negative 1, and then we're going to plug it into y equals mx plus b or point slope form, depending on what you like, to get our answer. So we have 8, that's our y, 5 is our x, negative 1 is our m. And we end up getting 13 as my y-intercept. Once I get that, I plug it back into y equals mx plus b. So y, and we have a negative 1. So you could also write it like this if you want. Personally, that doesn't look good, but I prefer this way because it's more mathematically correct. But if you leave it like this, I'm not going to mark it wrong, obviously. Then the next one, write the equation of the line that passes through 6, negative 5, and is perpendicular. So it's important to read the directions here, guys. Y equals 2x plus 3. So if we have a perpendicular slope, obviously because this is a positive 2, it's going to have to be a negative 2, or a negative now. And then 2 over 1 is my original slope, so I have to do the reciprocal, which would be negative 1 over 2. Okay? And the point is 6, negative 5. So we're going to plug that into y equals mx plus b and solve for b. And we end up getting negative 2 for my b. Then you plug that back in to y equals mx plus b and get your, so should look like y equals negative 1/2 x minus 2. Again, you can plug this in to the point slope form that I prefer to use. So it would look like this. You would change this to plus a positive and then distribute the negative 1/2. So you have y plus 5 equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. And then subtract 5 from both sides and you get y equals negative 1/2 x minus 2. And still, you get the same answer. Okay, so line L1 and L2 are neither horizontal nor vertical. Are they perpendicular? So when you guys are looking at different lines here, they might appear to be perpendicular, but sometimes they are not. So you need to do the slopes in order to find out if they have the opposite reciprocals. So for you always need to find the slope of the line first. So negative 4 minus 2 over 0 minus a negative 4 is equal to 6 over 4, which would reduce to negative 3 over 2. The slope of the other line is negative 3 minus 3 over negative 5 minus 4, and that would give you negative 6 over negative 9, which would reduce to 2 over 3. So because those two are opposite reciprocals, they are perpendicular. So you have a negative, you have a positive. One's 3 over 2, one's 2 over 3. Those are reciprocals, so they are perpendicular. Then vertical and horizontal lines. So a vertical line and they are perpendicular. So to write the equation of a line perpendicular to y equals -2 and the point 1,5, so perpendicular, my points x, y equals -2 is a horizontal line, and that is from Friday's lesson. So horizontal lines are always y equals a number. Vertical lines are always x equals a number. Okay, so if I have a horizontal line and I need the one that is perpendicular, that means that I need a vertical line. And because it goes through this point here, my vertical lines are always x equals a number, so x would equal 1 for that equation. For number 3, write the equation of a line parallel to x equals 3 and passes through -9, 5. So x equals 3 is a vertical line, and because they're parallel, they need to be the same. So this should also be vertical. So then, I'm using this point here, my vertical lines are always my x value, so it's x equals -9. Write the equation of a line perpendicular to x equals 8 and through the point -3, 2. X equals 8 is vertical, so the perpendicular line should be horizontal. So horizontal lines are always with my y, so it will be y equals 2. Write the equation of a line parallel to y equals 5 and passes through 5, -7. Y equals 5 is a horizontal line, and parallel would also mean that it needs to be horizontal. So that's the case, it's relating to the y value, so y would equal -7. These questions are probably the easiest as long as you can understand it. They're easy points because you don't have to do any math. Let me know if you guys have any questions.